Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram and TikTok for a chance to win this playmat. And welcome to Swords to Podcast. Welcome back. Welcome into the Swords to Podcast. My name is Adam.
My name is Thomas. Now, today we have another tier list, but this one is going to be different. We're looking at the 15 most popular, some of the ones just I picked, archetypes for building your commander decks. We're going to look at these, obviously, in like a casual setting, so no EDH today. Before we start, Adam, how about we go over some ground rules for our tier list? So kind of like the correct criteria for how we're going to judge these and how we're going to determine which section or which tier they're gonna fall under. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot similar to the tier list we did based on just commanders. So we're going to be basing this off of power level, how powerful they are, sort of how resilient they are, how easily they can get picked apart by other decks. We're also going to consider the political side. So if an archetype is really strong, sometimes that archetype is kind of balanced by it's normally the eyes are on that deck. The eyes of the table are on that deck as soon as that player sits down at the table. That could be anything from, the archetype leads to unfun play patterns, or it's just typically very strong or hard to interact with, stuff like that. So we're going to be kind of trying to balance those two as we talk about, ideally like an S tier deck will be, or an S tier archetype will be a very strong archetype that doesn't leave your opponents feeling bad when they lose. It doesn't normally draw a lot of ire, doesn't cause a lot of problems as soon as it sits down. A tier is a little bit less powerful, maybe a little bit more unfun for people to play against. B, less powerful. It'll be a deck that might not even win very often. And then as we go further and further down the list, it'll become more and more apparent that these are just bad archetypes that get hated off the table immediately.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And just like our last time, this tier list is going to be available for you guys to try if you'd like. It will be linked in the description of this video. I think on both. I don't know. We'll put it out there. So let's go ahead and jump right in, Adam. Our first archetype here is going to be artifacts. You wanna kick us off? Talk about artifacts.
Yeah, artifacts is like, it has to be one of the strongest archetypes. Like, I mean, in Commander as a whole, there's so many strong commanders. I mean, you can really build artifacts in any kind of colors you want. There's a commander out there for every pairing, every tricolor pairing, 4-color and everything. I mean, there's so many artifact builds out there. It's a super prevalent archetype, and for a good reason. It's very strong. I think without a doubt, artifacts baseline is A tier.
I agree. Yeah.
There are a lot of artifacts decks that aren't necessarily oppressive. They're strong without causing problems at the table oftentimes. So it's very unlikely that people are going to be immediately looking at you as soon as you sit down at the table if you're playing artifacts.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, so there's a lot of like subsections to this one. For example, one of the nicer ones you could do is equipment, which is still could be, an artifact deck. There's other things. I mean, treasure isn't always, but they'll always find like a little like sub theme, whether artifact is the overarching one or it is the sub theme behind whatever else you're trying to do. So I'm a little hesitant to throw it as high as S tier because when it comes to playing artifacts, people generally know. Like for example, Adam, if I had to ask you a commander that is an artifact deck, who's the first one that comes to mind?
Urza.
Exactly. So, when it comes to being fun to play against, that's where I'm a little bit skeptical on this one. It's really powerful, of course, but I think when we're factoring that in, that it does it can get out of hand. Maybe I don't want to throw it necessarily in S tier. And if we're talking about like the full range, right? So we are going from your Urza all the way down to your what is it, like Arden and
Most Dangerous Gamer,
Rograk, or Gamer. Yeah, there's all these ones, right? But I think for that reason, I would be good to slot it in here at A. just because I think it's a
Agreed.
little bit more balanced. All right, so I'm good with that. Artifacts is going to be our first one sitting up there at A tier. Let's move on to our next archetype. Now, this one is one of my personal favorites, and it's going to be enchantments. So, enchantments is very, very strong, especially in casual, because they are very hard to deal with sometimes. You need board wipes, but most people are running like creature-based board wipes. So enchantments, gets around that. Plus, just the enchantment like protection is pretty nasty. Like, damn, I really should have done my research. Whatever the card is that gives all your enchantments shroud. There's other, there's a couple that do that type of thing. Gives your enchantments indestructible. It's very strong for a reason. The only issue that I have with it is that there's not a whole lot of variation when you're playing artifacts. It's or why am I saying artifacts now? Enchantments. When you're playing enchantments, you're generally, depending on colors, going to have a lot of similar, cards that you'll see throughout those decks. But I think enchantments is very strong, and I at least on par with artifacts, somewhere around that ballpark. What are you thinking, Adam?
I sort of agree with you, and I sort of don't. Um, I don't think raw power. If you stack up an artifacts deck and an enchantments deck against each other, I don't think the enchantment deck is going to win very often. Um, and the other problem that kind of goes hand in hand with that is enchantments get a lot more hate than artifacts do.
Yeah,
There's a lot more leeway that an artifact deck might not be that artifact deck, but so many enchantment decks are that enchantment deck where it's
yeah,
enchantment storm and you play enchantment, and then the next turn you play three enchantments, and the next turn you play seven enchantments. They all have hexproof and indestructible, and it like there's a very small window to interact with it, and it's just overwhelming. And typically, most decks can't win over top of it because suddenly you have to pay 15 mana to attack them, and they the player has hexproof and you can't touch them, and like I and they get hate a lot of hate for that reason. So because I think it's head to head weaker than artifacts and hated more than artifacts, I would rather put it on a B tier, even though it probably wins more often than artifact decks do.
yeah. I don't hate that. I think when we're talking about these two, comparing them to each other, artifacts have a lot more potential to get out of hand earlier. Enchantments are generally going to be more of your mid-range late game type of builds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Control, like somewhat control, but like definitely pillow fort is the big thing I think of. And so, yeah, stacking up against each other, I don't hate putting enchantments at a B tier. And I think the biggest reason is like we both said, is that it's you're generally gonna fall under a really similar build as opposed to artifacts, which have a lot more versatility when it comes to building those decks. So yeah,
Yeah.
enchantments at a B tier, I cannot complain there. Let's move on to our next archetype here. It's going to be graveyard slash like reanimator style play play styles. I just said style twice. Okay, go ahead and take it away, Adam. I'm clearly fumbling on this one.
Yeah, this is. I mean, these are obviously the most popular ones, but we've seemed to hit two of the most popular ones uh, on top of all the other ones already. There's so many different graveyard decks that are running rampant through the format, and I actually got to play against one last night, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, or one of a more interesting take than what I've seen before. It was oh god, I think it was Indominus Rex. It's one of the Jurassic Park dinosaurs
The
that
one
when
where
it
you
enters,
discard and
you
it gives,
discard a bunch of cards and it gives
yeah,
keywords.
yeah,
Yes,
that is
but so
Indominus
this
Rex.
yeah, so this gentleman was not playing it the traditional Voltron style. Obviously, when he played the commander, suddenly he had, a 10-10 with double strike. It was like he was using the commander as a discard outlet
Mm.
to reanimate stuff later. Because obviously he wants to dump scary creatures with a lot of keywords into the graveyard, and then he just reanimates them later. And then whenever people remove Indominus Rex, he just recasts it later when he's drawn more cards to it's just a churn. The commander using being used as a draw and discard engine just churns through the deck. It
It's
was
an
super cool to
expensive
watch.
discard engine, but
Yeah,
I
but I
can
mean you
see
can
I
but
can
you
see the
can clone
vision.
it. You can yeah, it's dude, it was so cool. It was so cool to watch, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a twinge in my heart and made me miss Muldrotha. Um, but yeah, graveyard strategies are so strong, and it's so hard to beat that level of value. And I don't really think they get a lot of hate per se. So
I don't think
I
I
have no
wouldn't.
problem. I have no problem putting them in A tier.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect spot. They definitely seem right on par with artifacts, just in like the versatility, uh,
Mhm.
world. So for those of you that kind of know, I black is like my least played color. I Graveyard is not something I almost ever dip my feet in. Not because I don't like it. It's just it's never really been. I don't know. It's just never really been my play style. I always like just playing big things and churning through the deck. But yeah, reanimating. It's just I don't know. I've strayed away from it a little bit. Not necessarily on purpose. Just there's been other things. But I've played against it. Countless times, and it's always strong. And it never even really feels that bad. Like Muldrotha, like you said, Adam, super powerful, but I never really felt like it was like an oppressive, you know, strategy. We knew what it was doing and it did it very well, but you couldn't really hate that. It just it did its thing, and it was very powerful, and it didn't necessarily feel bad to lose again. So I do like playing against graveyard strategies because they can be very very powerful. So I think
Mhm.
A tier is great for that. With that, let's just move on to our next archetype here. So I guess these are called kindred now, which I've just learned. No longer tribal. It is kindred. So there's a million different. Okay, so now what do you call it? Do you call them tribes? Do you call them kinders? What,
Um,
what do I call them? Like
I
they're
don't. The
tribes. They're
different
still tribes,
creature
right?
types. They're
Sure.
kins. I don't know.
Oh, kins. Okay, I guess that works.
Groups,
Anyways,
types. Yeah.
some of the most popular. I mean, we talked about angels last week. You got I mean, what Eldrazi sliver? Like there's a million, not a
Yeah.
million, but you get the point. Very powerful archetype. There's a lot of. I wouldn't say it's quite as bad as enchantments when it comes to the staples that you're going to see in these. When it comes to your anthem effects or things like that. Because yeah, they have similar. They do similar things in each I guess kin we'll call them. But they're obviously on different cards because one of them will say, "Oh, all your humans do this," but sometimes you'll see like help me out here, Adam. There's some artifacts that are staples that say, "Oh, choose a creature type," like that kind of thing. So you'll see those in
Yeah.
general across them.
Yeah.
But even then, you don't necessarily have to go that route. You can play some different things like the just off the top of my head that new Katara with the allies. You'd think that you're building it like an allies deck, but a lot of people have taken a different route and built it more of a like a blink deck where you're just or like an ETB type of deck. So there's other ways you can go about it. What are you thinking here for our kindred archetype?
It's always fun going up against a kindred archetype because a lot of times you'll find out that certain cards that were already good in the format, you didn't know what creature type they were, and then when they show up in the deck, they're like, oh, didn't realize that. Didn't realize that was a
Mm,
I don't know. Didn't realize that card was a Sphinx or whatever.
yeah,
And I like I like decks that do that. Um, but the problem that I have with kindred decks is they're all at the end of the day, like 98% of them are combat damage based, and it kind of gets boring. Like we see your Vanquisher's banner, we see your banner of kinship, and then if you have people that play Coat of Arms, you need to stop being friends with them. Um, but
that's the
they
one I
they
was
play
trying to
all the
think of,
same.
like Coat of Arms. Yeah,
They all play the same sort of cards, and it's like, all right, we see what you're doing, and it's kind of boring. Like, obviously there's more to that. Not all kindred decks are bad. I'm not saying that, but just seeing the combat damage strategy, it's just so telegraphed. So I would be a fan of putting them in C or D tier.
yeah. I don't hate that. My biggest issue with them is the reason why I don't like to play them is they can be a bit of a headache with these like stacking effects and anthem effects trying to keep track of all of that.
Hmm.
So just to play against, and then also sometimes to play with them, it can get a headache to keep track of it. And playing against them can sometimes be a little annoying too, because th- the way that your opponent is keeping track doesn't always isn't always the most what's it called, like obvious to you. So you'll maybe
Hmm.
make a mistake and like swing in or try and do something, and they're like, oh, actually this has this thing, and you didn't really know because it's coming from somewhere else, and that's my issue with it. But I think C tier is decent for that because it is powerful. I don't think it's quite as bad as D tier because they definitely do the thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm good to stick Kindred in C tier. Let's move on to our next archetype, and this is probably one of, if not the most popular that people play. It's going to be Voltron. Adam, do you want to explain for those that don't know what Voltron is?
Yeah, Voltron, the entire point of Voltron is to kill your opponents with commander damage. Oftentimes, when you play Voltron, you have to single out one opponent at a time and kill them slowly, and kill them slowly one at a time, and that really sucks. It's slow to do. It's very telegraphed. Like I said, a lot of these decks can pretty easily fold to a piece or two of removal,
Yeah.
and it it has a really bad connotation because oftentimes you take out people earlier than expected, and then one person and then two people are just left sitting there like, okay, that's really cool.
Shout
Thanks
out
for that.
Yargle and Multani.
And so it's a viable strategy. I get it. Commander damage is a very real rule. It's a very real thing, but it does really lead to some feel bads from time to time. So I personally would like to put this in C tier as well.
Yeah, I am honestly really good with that. In my experience, I've played two like legit Voltron decks, and that would be Corvold and that would be Feather. And they were both good. They were fun to play, but that was the biggest issue is that it's just, you have to focus on one person, and then it's just that they really don't win super often because you got to put all your eggs in one basket, and when that basket, breaks, then you got to rebuild, and it's slow, and you can't really do it as well as other people. Um, and in general, this is one thing that I also don't love is every single Voltron deck is going to be running Boots and Greaves. If you don't have Boots and Greaves, sometimes you have kind of a bad time. Corvold was cool because I ran a lot of those like Feign Death types of cards where it was like an enchantment that if it dies, it comes back, and those help a lot for sure. But again, it's really resource intensive, and it's just on the one, and once they're gone, they're gone. C tier, I feel like is very fitting for Voltron. Let's move on to Adam's favorite archetype. This is Mill. Adam's a big fan of Mill.
Oh
Big
yeah.
Bruvac supporter.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I can't wait to hear where you're feeling to put Mill. What are you thinking, Adam?
D tier. D tier. Mill is not a viable strategy. It's You basically have to be playing the doubling effects and the cards. You basically just have to be assembling infinite combos if you want to actually win with Mill. Milling an opponent with 60 cards in their library is so easy. Milling three opponents with 99 cards in their library is next to impossible without infinite combos.
Yeah.
You have to play such heavy stacks and a heavy control plan, and it's not synergistic. If there's anyone at the table that has any sort of advantage in their graveyard, you're actively helping them. It's just Mill is while I stand Mill players, I stand with you, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that you're trying to play a strategy that's very difficult to do, but it's just not fun for your opponents oftentimes, and it's just not very viable. So I think D tier all the way.
D tier. That's no bueno. All right, let's move on to our next topic. Now this one, I don't know. I don't know if I can call this one controversial. It's another big open wide archetype. This is going to be tokens. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can go with this. You can go wide tokens. I'm also kind of lumping in, I guess, like maybe like food tokens, like, but even though those kind of go other places, the whole idea here is that they have, like, we're playing around these like effects, like, oh, if you would create one or more tokens, create more instead. So whatever types of tokens you're trying to create, whether that's like your 1/1s little go wide strategy, whether that's food tokens or clue whatever it is, we're gonna bundle those up into this lump category. Take it away, Adam. What's your opinion on tokens?
Um, I I've never loved token strategies personally. I've never loved to play them. I find that the lists. I mean, now we're sort of getting away from that now that we have so many doublers. But all the decks would you had to buy three or four of these $40 cards to build the deck, and so I
Yeah.
always would stay away from building tokens when I was first getting into Commander. I don't hate it as much anymore. Um, I do think it definitely suffers from the same problem that um, Kindred decks rely on, and it's all that it has. They have a lot of the same pieces in them,
Mhm.
even still with all the new cards we get every year. So, but it's a very viable strategy for sure. I mean, look at how well Magda and Tivit and Marnia's Calgar do in CDH. I mean, there are some very strong token decks out there. Obviously they're not; those aren't the casual spirited commander decks that we see most of the time at LGSs, but they definitely show how broken tokens can be. And for that reason, as much as I hate to say it because I don't play tokens and I don't like token decks, I think they're deserving of an A tier spot.
An A tier, interest. I honestly wouldn't go so far as to put him that high. So definitely, Treasure took a hit after the Dockside ban. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
The other token decks, they're kind of going off just fine. I'm in the same boat as you. I've never really liked them. I don't think they're that great, and you just don't see them that often for the reason that you mentioned is that they're kind of expensive even now with like a bunch of new cards coming out and even like some reprints. They've just they've just never been that great, and this is the issue that I have, which is something that we kind of mentioned in a couple of these past few archetypes we talked about. Is you'll see some of the same cards like what like no, animation module's not a good one. There's um what's that stupid like 3 mana something if you would create Academy Manufacturer, right? Like you're
Yeah.
gonna like it's cards like
Wait,
that
what'd
where
you
you're just
say?
gonna Academy Manufacturer. That's what I said.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought you
That's what
said.
I said. I
Yeah,
said
just making
Academy
sure.
Manufacturer. It's
Yeah,
like
okay.
you'll see
Because
you'll
I could have
see.
sworn.
No, I definitely said Manufacturer because I know what the card is
Okay,
called. Yeah. No,
gotcha.
but
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Yeah, yeah.
outside of that one, I mean, there's a couple other cards that you're just gonna expect to see in these types of decks, and that's just one of the only issues that I really have with it, and in general, because it's something that we've talked about like a million times already that we don't love putting the same cards in other decks, and I think that kind of translates a little bit to this too. Is like I don't love the archetypes where you're just kind of feel forced to play the same cards because they just are the best. Now, the one thing I'll say, the most recent time I played against a token deck, it was Niv. No, no, no. Some. It was like two people. It's a Simic deck and it's like Twin Caster or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't mix Nyx
Simic
and
deck?
it's like a Simic deck and it's like two people. It's like Nyx and something Twin Casters. Um,
Oh, Nev,
Atrix
I
and
think.
Nev. Atrix and Nev.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And that was a tokens deck. That was awesome because it was just like I honestly I will say I love those. I like math. I like those decks where you just like do like those like scaling um, numbers. When you're not necessarily going infinite, but when you're doing like crazy like doubling, it is pretty cool and very very powerful. I will say full transparency. We lost that game to that. I just said the name. What is it? Mix and
Adrix and
Nev.
Nev.
Atrix and Nev. I just said the name too. Um, I think it's very powerful. I don't want to put it at A tier because I don't see it super often, and I think that in general, I know that there's different types of tokens decks, but I think it has like the same issue with enchantments where it's kind of the same. every time. That's the reason why I would want to throw it on the same level as enchantments, because there's not like as much room to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
what do you
I
think?
don't love it. I don't love it at the A tier spot. My personal opinion, I would put it in C tier. So I was
Mm.
moving it. Um, I was artificially bumping it up to A because I was worried that my own biases were working against me there. So I am A okay with it at B.
B. Yeah, I wouldn't even hate putting it at C either, but I think that just since we don't play it,
Yeah.
that's probably the reason why we're feeling a little bit lower. But hey, we'll show some love to those token players. We'll put it at B tier. Let's move on to everyone's favorite Infect. I think this is an easy S tier. It's the best archetype in the format, is it not? Give me one good
Without a
reason why.
doubt.
Give me one good reason why Infect isn't the best.
I
Like,
mean, it
why would
wins so
people
much.
play anything
It's
other
so
than that? Yeah,
strong. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
Finn the Fangbearer, mono green,
Mm,
infect. I mean,
mm-hmm.
yeah, S tier.
No, but to be serious, don't play Infect, bro.
Don't play Infect. It doesn't even really win, right? Because you sit down at the table and everyone knows that you're either going to sit down with Atraxa or Finn, maybe.
Like, I can't even think of anyone else. It's probably one of those two decks is what you're sitting down with. People know exactly what you're doing, and they're just gonna bully you out of the game. They're like, "You're playing Infect, yeah, you're dead. Like, you don't get to play the game. Sorry, bro." And it doesn't, like, yeah, maybe it has the same issue that we said with Voltron, where it's like, yeah, maybe you'll get like one person out of the game, but it's like it other than that, I don't think
Then
you're
what?
gonna really be winning games. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Infect finds a great place down in D tier, right next to Mill.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're good with that. Do you have anything else you wanted to add? I know you have some opinions on Infect. Anything else, Adam?
No, I mean, Infect is so hated. It's I mean, it's literally a joke. Like last night, we were talking about having there was someone that was new to the LGS, and they were asking about the commander tournament that we do on Saturdays occasionally. And I mean, it was to the point where we were making jokes like, yeah, the commander bracket is all, or the commander tournament is all bracket 5 Infect only. And it's like, it's so hated that we make jokes about it that like you would never actually play it. So
Is that
yeah,
a thing? Is that
I,
a thing that someone's done? Has anyone ever played Infect in CDH?
oh, I'm
Like,
sure can't be
I mean,
good.
but like one. Has anyone? I meant to say, has anyone ever like won with Infect in CDH consistently? I won't say just like
Um,
a one
I was gonna
off.
say I don't know about tournaments. Let me see.
Yeah, we should
Let
do
me
it.
check.
That should be our thing. We should get on a spell table with our bracket 5 Infect deck. Yes. Yes. Pride of the community. Swords the podcast playing
Finn the
CDH
Fangbearer on
Infect.
EDH top 16 has 0 entries, 0 meta share, and 0 conversion rate
Oh
in the last year.
no.
Let's go all time. All time nothing.
No one's
All
ever
time
done
all
it.
events. Okay. All time it has 3 entries in events with 32 plus players. Let's see
Okay.
if I go all events. Yeah, there's no
Can you pull up one of those I just like out of curiosity, what does that look
a
like?
gentleman named Claudio Munoz took first in an 18-player tournament.
With Finn?
And that is the best anyone has ever done with Finn
When was
on
that?
December 14th, 2024.
That was recent? No way. Wait, and that
Frederick
was
Kong took fifth at a 14-player tournament, a $200 multi-EDH event at Bonfire on October 5th, 2024. Let's see, the most recent one, a gentleman got, I think this is a gentleman. Someone got 11th out of 19 with Finn on May 30. Oh no, we've got October 18th. Someone got 13th out of 14.
Okay, so hey, people are trying.
Yeah, people are, yeah,
Can't
certainly.
can't say they're not trying. That's wild. I never would have thought. Well, I know what I'm going to look at after this. Guys, I promise I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it. I'm just curious. I'm just curious. I'm not going to do it, guys. I promise. But who would I be if I didn't, you know, educate myself on everything that's out there. Infect. Wow, what a strategy. Well,
Hmm.
let us move on from there. Up next, we have. I know I said enchantments was one of my favorites. This is probably, my personal favorite. It's 1/1 counters. Everyone knows 1/1 counters is probably the best archetype in the format. In all seriousness, though, it is crazy powerful. And the one that I built is Azuri. It is a bracket 3, and it's very good for a bracket 3 deck. Uh, I didn't feel like making it up to a bracket 4 because I feel like it's pretty solid where it's at. There are crazy, crazy powerful 1/1 counter decks. I think it's one of the more resilient ones because you're just making massive creatures, and some of the protection that is offered depending on your color is very good. Like, oh, creatures with 1/1 counters on them have hexproof, blah, whatever it may be. Very, very well supported, and there's a lot of ways that you can go really in any color, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be, making creatures big. There's also like what Marvin's a guy that does things where it's just you can get all your abilities from creatures with 1/1 counters. There's so many different things you can do, and that's going to be my take on this. And I'm going to be too biased, so I'm just going to leave Adam. I'm going to leave it up to your discretion to find a spot for 1/1 counters.
You're not gonna like this, Thomas.
Bro, you gotta be serious though. You gotta be at least be serious.
Yeah, I'm
It's
being.
not.
I'll be serious. I'll be
You gotta at
serious with you.
least be. You gotta at least be serious. At least be serious. Okay, take it away,
C tier.
bro. I said you have to at least be serious. How is it C tier? Okay, just humor me. How is it B tier? C tier.
It suffers from the exact same problems as our kindred decks. A lot of the same cards, and it's very annoying to have to keep track of as the +1/+1 counters player and as the people trying to figure out how big your creatures are. It's so hard to communicate that. I mean, it's all combat based. Uh, It's got a lot of the same cards, man.
Well, okay. I think first of all, it's a lot easier to keep track of than the tribal because you're just putting like tribal is like it's just stacking effects that say, oh, it gets this. So like if something dies and you have to go back and redo everything. But 1/1 counters are just put on something and they stay there, right? Or you can like remove them, but it's not like if this creature goes away, then all of my creatures now lose like +3, +4. Like they go down by that much. So that's the reason why I think it's a lot easier to keep track of on both sides of the coin. And then when it comes to playing a lot of the similar cards, maybe, but maybe I'll give you that. Maybe I'll give you that. I don't completely agree because I think that it's ridiculous how many. I think there's way more 1/1 counter cards than there are kindred. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's like when you're thinking of like kindred staples, you already said like coat of arms, those kinds of things. With 1/1 counters, I think there's just too many options. So I think it's a little bit more
But also, all kindred decks are
diverse.
different.
Well, yeah, but like
Like a
still.
kindred decks vary way, way more than +1/+1 counters decks between each other.
I mean, I guess. Look, I think that I'm really biased. So I can't like argue with you. I genuinely do think it deserves at least a B tier because it is very, very powerful. And I don't think it's like crazy, crazy oppressive to play against because, especially the way that I built my deck, you know, I have like some protection, but I didn't go super, super crazy. I play like one board wipe, and that's like wave goodbye, right? With where everything that doesn't have a 1/1 counter on it, like destroy or like return it, whatever it is. I think it's
Hmm.
return. I don't know.
Return to
And
hand.
so I don't go super crazy with my build. And if a board wipe if a board wipe happens, it happens. I'll just move on to bigger and better things. And because I have plenty of stuff, it's like playing like a fresh game after that. Like I'm not tripping to get the same stuff back out. That's just where I stand with it. I don't know. I'll leave it to your final discretion, but I genuinely do think it deserves at least not at least. I think it's B tier. I think it's B tier.
You've convinced me.
Yes.
I digress. I'll put it in B tier.
Doing God's work today, just like self-mill players. Let's go. Now let's move on to, this one's going to be interesting, and I want to say this. I don't like, just my first take. I don't want to throw this too hastily into what people might be thinking we're going to do into D tier. I think let's give this the benefit of the doubt. Stacks and hate bears. Adam, here, actually, I make you explain everything. I'll explain the difference. So stacks and hate bears are very similar, but the key difference is that hate bears is generally your stacks on creatures, and stacks is more on like artifacts, enchantments, and the whole point is that they're meant to slow the game down, put like taxes on everybody, and just make it harder for people to play the game. For example, you have like some classic pieces like Dranith Magistrate, where, you know, what is it? People can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. That's the right one, right?
Yep.
Trying to remember what the box is. You got like Aven Mind Sensor, where if somebody would search the library, they only get to search the top two. So generally, top four. Yeah, my bad. Four.
Close enough.
So generally, it'll affect the whole table, but the whole point about stacks is that you're trying to kind of break parity, and you built your deck to play around that. So while it stops other people from being able to do their thing, you're not completely on the taken down to the same level, right? And so you'll, yeah, so that's the general way to play stacks. A lot of times I don't think you're gonna see like full on stacks builds at casual tables. CEDH, even so, stacks is, yeah, people will play stacks pieces, but I can't really say. I mean, there are some decks out there that are doing really well with like more heavy stacks builds, but in general, I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a couple pieces, maybe ones that don't really affect you in any way. Like, for example, what was it that I just said? Dranith Magistrate is pretty common if you have zero intentions of casting stuff from anywhere other than your hand. But even then, you wouldn't see that, I guess, at a casual table. Enough rambling. That's stacks.
Yesterday.
Oh, okay. You want to take it away then, Adam? Tell us about your experience there with casual stacks.
Yeah, so a gentleman last night was playing Y'shtola, and oh boy, he played a Dranith Magistrate turn 2, and then he played Overburden, which is a 2-mana enchantment that reads whenever you put a creature into play, you return a land to your hand. And then after we removed both of those pieces, he played Heuristic Study. So we all teamed up and killed him. And, you know, the thing is, stacks is not as powerful as people think it is.
Yeah, I agree.
I play Plague on Lord of the Beach, which is probably the most viable stacks deck in the format, besides maybe Winota, but
And
Plague on
CEDH.
still has a bigger... it's CDH,
Yeah, CEDH.
which still has a bigger meta share. And there's so little room for stacks pieces, because at the end of the day, if you're playing high power Magic, it's not a good thing to spend resources on things that don't actively win you the game.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people are cutting counter spells and cutting interactions so that they can just try to win the game faster than everybody else, or win the game more protected or more effectively than somebody else. And stacks, and that sort of, I think, bleeds down into the lower brackets. Stacks don't advance your own game plan typically. In Plague on, it's a little different, because sometimes if they have big butts, then Plague on can draw off them, but that's a totally different, totally niche thing. Playing stacks just makes your opponents hate you. It just makes your opponents hit you with things. It makes your opponent, and so many times people don't have interaction for that one enchantment that's totally screwing them, so they're just going to hit you with big things until you're dead. They will resort to player removal. Playing stacks as an archetype in your commander deck is an awful idea. I don't think there is any benefit of the doubt to be given here, in my opinion. The only time that stacks is okay, in my opinion, is if it supports a game plan that is strong, that is more overarching than the stacks themselves. So, like, Plagon's game plan is to just draw a buttload of cards, and so it plays I think my deck is currently on 3 stacks pieces, and all of them let me draw cards off of them. That's the only reason they're in the deck. If they don't let me draw cards off of them, then they're not good enough to be in the deck. So I think stacks can be useful when you're playing a slower deck, and the stacks pieces do help you with that game plan. But in my opinion, if you have a deck that's built around stacks pieces and it doesn't actually have a way to push itself to a win faster than everybody else, I think it's just bad. I think D tier is firmly where these stacks belong. I don't think there's no argument that will tell me to put it any higher.
No, I don't want it to come off sounding like I thought it belonged higher. I wanted to at least have a conversation about it before, before we said, oh, it's D tier. Because I agree, it is D tier. Stacks, if that's like your main focus, like what are you doing? You're just building a deck to make the game last forever. And there's no true like win con that, like you said, Adam, that uses just a bunch of stacks pieces. There's certain decks, like you said, that benefit off of having some, but yeah, as an overarching archetype, it's like what are you doing? You're not really, you're just playing the game to make it harder on everybody else. And at that point, are you really having fun? You think it sounds cool, but I think in practice, it can't be all that. It definitely is not all that. Okay, so stacks 8-bear sitting at D tier.
Yeah, Commander's a format where you're much better off drawing 5 cards and then letting everybody else draw their 1 card instead of forcing everybody to draw 0 cards and then just drawing your 1 because your 1 is bigger than their 0. Like that's,
yeah,
it goes against the very spirit of Commander, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. So Adam, I'm gonna let you take it away with our next one. This is gonna be Aristocrats, and I have an opinion on this one, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, aristocrat decks are not, at least in my experience, as strong as they read on paper. These decks, if you're unfamiliar, these decks typically rely on making lots of tokens, or sometimes even making big things that have enters the battlefield or dies triggers, and then sacrificing them for value, and then typically having a blood artist type of effect that drains your opponent's life and then allows you to gain life. It's just a war of attrition, making things, and then sometimes these kinds of decks will use edict effects. My arguments against these types of decks are twofold. Number one, they're always targeted. As soon as you see anyone with a commander in the command zone that's going to let them gain a bunch of life, that's where everyone's first attacks go. That's where the biggest things will typically go, because people think that person is going to be gaining life and they're going to be using their life as a resource. So they're going to pressure it as soon as possible. And my second argument against aristocrats is that these sorts of decks, they don't always lead to unfun playstyles, and they don't have to lead to unfun playstyles, but they are so synergistic with unfun playstyles. Edict effects, things that make people sacrifice a lot of important stuff very early on. Death loops with stuff like, Butcher of Malik here, and ways to basically ensure your opponents don't have anything on the table, giving things -1/-1 counters. There's just a lot of unfun things that these decks can do, and I think they're given a bad rap because of that. I don't necessarily think that aristocrat decks are bad because they do those things. I think that you probably have played against a bad aristocrats deck in your lifetime, and then suddenly you're on the lookout for any other aristocrat deck that might do that.
So when I think of aristocrats, a lot of what you said I think holds very true. Definitely, once you know that that's what they're doing, you kind of know what to look for. I think they're very powerful, and I don't think there's a whole lot of leeway. Like, I think in general, it's usually gonna at least have Orzhov. It's gonna be black and white, maybe splashing in another color. Edgar Markov is obviously one of the, probably the biggest aristocrats commander out there, and I think it's good at what it does. It's not super fun to play against when they really get going because they have all these pieces that are draining you life, and that's the thing that I hate because they get way out of hand, gaining all this life, pinging everybody. And here's my biggest thing, and this is a question for you, Adam. Have you ever seen an aristocrats deck without? I think you know what two cards I'm gonna say. Have you ever seen anybody build an aristocrats deck without those two cards?
I presume you mean Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond?
Yes, exactly.
I have, to be quite honest with you, but that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
And also I think there's been duplicates of those cards printed. I think there's
There has,
at least
yes.
one more of either of those, or of each of those cards. And there's even, I mean, you've got Vito Thorn of Duskrose, who is
Yeah, a lot
one of
them
those
are on
pieces in the
creatures,
command zone. So, yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily any worse. Like, if you let your opponents get up to like 10 black mana, you're in for some pain anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's my
It just might
biggest
not be
thing
infinite.
is I just think it's super lame because like they're always running those cards, bro. They're always running those cards, and it's like, yo, like what are you, some kind of robot? You're like, I'm gonna play aristocrats. What cards do I need? I need
Beep boop
exquisite
bop.
blood. I
Beep boop
need
bop.
them in my
Exquisite
in my
Blood. Beep boop. Sanguine Bond.
and that's kind of my problem with it. And I still think that they're very, very powerful decks, but once hold on. Bro, that's the second time today that I've had a sneeze just pass. Damn it.
Getting
Hate when
blue
that
balled, bro.
happens. Exactly. Anyway,
Kind of like when you lose to Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond.
yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Damn. But yeah, no, so that that's where I look at it. They're not super fun to play against, especially because just they're just so telegraphed, and like if they don't get those two cards, they have every other card, every single other one that does the same thing as one of those two cards. Every single one is in the deck, and it's just like, good job, good job. You know how to go on EDH rec and put every single one of the high synergy and top cards into your deck. That's how you build a deck. Wow, I can learn something from this, but yeah, that's where I'm at. So hey, I wouldn't even be mad putting this at C tier. I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah, no, me either. C tier. All the
C
way.
tier, okay. C tier for aristocrats. That's crazy because at first I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good, and then I'm like, yeah, but those two cards exist. C tier. That's such a shame for aristocrats. All right, we are on our last four, so let's move on to. Honestly, I don't even think it's crazy to say probably like one of the worst archetypes that you could possibly play in Commander. That's aggro. Adam, do you want to talk about just what aggro looks like in Commander? 'Cause I know it's a
Aggro
little
is so hard to
different.
do. Aggro is like nearly impossible to pull off. Aggro kind of, it focuses on getting creatures down early or dealing, playing spells like Bolt Wave or just spells that deal a lot of damage very, very efficiently. These decks will be very red themed, I think. Sometimes you have Gruul decks that do this. Try to get just a lot of damage in and try to kill people as fast as possible. And it's so hard to do when you have to kill 3 players at the same time. It's nearly impossible. I don't really think we need to spend a whole lot of time on this. I don't want to put it in D tier because people that play aggro are good at what they do and they love it. They love what they do, and it's not necessarily there's really no feel bad there, in my opinion,
I don't
if
I
you
don't
lose to
think
an
so.
aggro deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, but like the thing is when have you ever really known an aggro deck to win in Commander? Like when was the last time you even saw somebody play aggro in Commander? Like how do you do it? You're playing against 3 people with 40 life. Like genuinely,
Mm-hmm.
how do you do it? And I would love to put it because the way that our D tier is looking is it's just like the you
Most
should
hated.
you yeah most hated. You should low-key consider playing a different game types of archetypes. um but it's tough, and so I could see throwing aggro up to C tier because like it's another one of those props to you if you're doing this. Like, keep working, soldier. Like these, I feel like aggro players are true blue collar workers. That's what aggro feels like. They're just out there working. They're working their 30-hour days, and what else?
30-hour days.
Their neck is blue. Yeah, well, that's the joke.
Collar's
30-hour
blue, but
days.
their neck is red.
Yeah, but that's the joke. They're working 30-hour days.
Yeah,
I know. There's 24 hours in a day. I know.
I could get behind the C tier. I'm with that.
Yeah. I think we'll put it in C tier just because it's like, keep going. Like, we understand the fight and we're with it. And hopefully Wizards blesses you guys soon. Cause yeah, it could be cool. I guess we could honestly here, let's take a step back for a second. Cause aggro it just feels a little mean to put it by itself. How about like turbo, like aggro? But then we're talking more like CEDH, so maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's just aggro.
Just aggro. Okay, fine.
Those are two
aggro,
very different decks too.
Yeah, they are. Aggro C tier. 3 left. Let us go into our next archetype, and this is going to be Spellslinger and Storm. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, Adam, and say I think that this just deserves S tier. I think it's very strong. It's very versatile. There's a lot of ways you can build it. It doesn't feel bad to lose to a Storm deck because honestly, it's kind of cool. It's like they're just going off playing a bunch of spells. It's cool. Like what is it? Krark Sakashima never even felt that bad. It's like it's kind of cool to watch. So Spellslinger Storm, very powerful, not super oppressive. I think that this belongs in S tier. What do you think, Adam?
Was some of that sarcasm?
No, genuinely. I genuinely think that
okay.
Spellslinger and Storm is S tier.
Okay. I was leaning more towards A tier. I think it's very much on par as far as like win rate and how much it's hated on. Because like obviously there's people that are gonna hate on artifacts. There's always gonna be people that hate on the graveyard strategy. There's always gonna be people that hate on Storm decks. Like there's gonna be people that are really like, oh, you kill us with a grape shot, nice job. But I do think it's pretty strong in Commander, especially with some of the insane commanders we've gotten for it lately.
At any bracket too. It wins in CEDH. It wins in bracket 3. Bracket 2 probably. I don't know.
All right. You've talked me into
S tier. Yeah.
S tier.
I knew it. And I feel like it's just okay, I'm not gonna say this word that I want to say because I am saving it for a different archetype. But it is one of the nicer ones to play because like some of these commanders are just like you can't really hate on them. Like the one that comes to mind is what's the precon from Outlaws, Stella Lee. Like she's really cool. She's a really cool commander. Cool. There's some cool combos. Like they're almost always like combo decks, and I love combo decks. I'm a big fan of combo decks. It's so awesome to see combos happen, and it's something you even mentioned earlier where somebody goes and does their combo, and everyone else at the table's like, oh, I see. That is really cool, right? So. Yeah, I think enough to be said there. Spellslinger and Storm is very, very strong. S tier. Do you have anything else you want to say before we move on?
No, sounds good to me.
Okay. 2 left. Our next one here is going to be Group Hug and Politics. It's weird. I feel like we've talked about Group Hug an awful lot throughout the last couple episodes. And politics a little bit as well. Adam, just what are your initial thoughts here on Group Hug and Politics decks? Where do you think they could fit in?
God, these decks are so weird. It's such an amorphous group of decks, and they play better than they read. Which is really weird because you wouldn't think they do. But people tend to leave these decks alone for way too long than they deserve to be left alone. But, how the deck, as we said at the beginning of this episode, how the deck interacts with like the rest of the table and how the deck is perceived by the rest of the table is very important. And that's what leads these decks to just kind of win out of nowhere oftentimes. So I'm okay with, I don't love the deck archetype, but I think it's deserving of A tier as far as how often they win. They kind of let other decks do their thing. They don't necessarily lead to a lot of people having a bad time. So I think A tier is more than deserved.
I completely agree. And the biggest thing for me is I feel like these decks stand out among the rest in their playstyle because this is the most active, the active playstyle because you have to talk to the table. There's nothing else
Hmm.
that really works like this. There's other decks where yes, you will do politicking, like hey, don't attack me, blah blah blah. But these decks are built to do that. And if you can successfully play like a group hug politics deck, then that is really really impressive. And it also I think helps with the with making it not feel as bad because it's the pilot that's really making it feel not oppressive until the end, and then you're like wow, like hey, you got us that because it make it everyone gets to play the game. It's not like stacks where you're like where you're oppressing people. So everyone gets to play the game. In fact, most of the time they're getting boosted up. It's the whole point in all of these decks. And then at the end you win in just I'll say a really fair way, I guess. I don't think there's another way to put it. So I love that. I love table talk. I think A is perfect. Very, very perfect slot for this one. I'm still a big fan. They're hard to play. They aren't. They genuinely.
Hmm.
It takes a special pilot to really pull off like a politics deck, a full on politics deck. So A tier feels great. All right, with that, let's move on to our final archetype for the day. And this is that word that I was waiting to use. I think that this is the most wholesome archetype that you can choose to play in Commander. This is Landfall or Lands Matter. And just like I did for Storm, I'm going out on another limb. I think this is S tier because it's very not very often that you feel bad about this. You know what's coming and it's not one of those feel bad things. It's not oppressing people and it's just there's so many ways you can build it, very versatile. There's whatever I say is going to sound very similar to my whole ramble about Storm. But Adam, what are we thinking here with Landfall? Just again, like I said, the most wholesome archetype in my opinion in Commander.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only stipulation I have for Landfall is that I think they prey on the format to a degree, because the format, the Commander format, is very not okay with blowing up lands and preventing people from playing extra lands, and it's a feel bad thing to interact with your opponent in that way. And so I
Mm,
think Landfall decks are stronger. I feel like I've said this phrase 3 or 4 times today, or the opposite of this phrase, or whatever. But Landfall decks play better than they read on paper. Your opponents never, or no, maybe Landfall decks, they perform exactly how they read on paper because they're interacted with very little, just because
yes.
of the sentiment of the format. And also, when they start to, sort of when the pot starts to boil over the top and they start to really start dealing some damage with their Omnath tokens or whatever they're playing, and you start removing it, you find that because they were only getting rewarded for playing lands, they're so resilient. They just have so much mana late game. I mean, it feels almost insurmountable to try to spot remove their things because they'll always be able to recast their commander. They'll always be able to keep playing lands. They'll always be able to keep doing that. And because they're typically searching for these lands or pulling them out of their deck, they're more likely to draw gas later on. So
Mm.
it's a perfect storm. I don't I don't see this archetype going anywhere other than S tier anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a really really good point. I didn't even really think about that. The fact that people don't like to play land destruction kind of boost these decks up. That's a very interesting take on it, and completely fair. But yeah, I don't know. Even so, it definitely is tough because it feels like there's nothing you can do. But that goes back to the I'm not going to play land destruction or anything like that. And what's crazy is if I'm not mistaken, I mean, no, there has to be something. You have to help me out on this one, Adam. Are there stacks pieces that stop people from playing extra lands?
Oh yeah.
There are, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not something that people would play. But again, it's like, why would you put that in your deck? Because then you're just, it's like, it's kind of like shoot, I should know this. The land that like when it comes in, Ash Barrens, right? Exiles a graveyard.
Pajuka Bog.
Bazooka Bog, thank you. Like that's one of those cards where yeah, I could just put it in all my black decks because like you never know. I might as well because it at least gives you black. But if if you were to put in like a stacks piece just to like stop people from playing extra lands, that feels pretty mean spirited almost. So then it's
Hmm.
like how do you really deal with this kind of thing?
Well, and Bajuka Bog stops more than just those decks. And at the end of the day, it's just a tapped swamp. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
not a there. Well, there never used to be a super high deck building cost, but now that there's so many good MDFCs, so many lands that enter untapped, and the format is just genuinely faster, I think Bajuka Bog. I mean, I only run Bajuka Bog in one deck that can run it. I mean, it's it's not, and I only run it really in that deck because I have crop rotation, so I can tutor for it and do fun things with it.
hmm
But yeah, the deck building cost of tuning your deck against landfall is insurmountable. Like you would never do that ever
yeah,
if you wanted to actually build a functional deck.
yeah. So with that, landfall, we'll say at our S tier, right alongside Storm. I don't hate this list, Adam. What do you think? And I mean, anything that kind of surprised you, or anything that I felt a little hard to place, just kind of looking back on our list today.
I will say my first look, I was worried that we were going to put way more things in A and B tier. I was worried that we were actually going to have a double wide tier. But now that we've kind of talked through some of these, and I was more worried that I wasn't going to be able to fill in S or D tier with like more than one. But
Yeah,
I now that since we talked about these lists and I've been able to sort of rationalize my picks with where you stand on some of these archetypes, I think I'm more comfortable with this list than the commander list we made for the avatar commanders.
I don't even think that list was terrible. I thought because like when we were going through that, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, dang, is this going to be like super lopsided? It kind of balanced out
Hmm.
by the end. This one was looking about the same. I kind of knew. I think before we started, I knew landfall was probably going to be an S, and I'm like, I don't even know what else. Um, but no, I think I'm pretty happy with this one as well. Let us know in the comments, guys, if you got a chance. Like you said, we'll leave the link to this in the description if you want to try it. Let us know what you think, if you agree, disagree with any of our takes. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. Anything else from you, Adam, before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, make sure to check out our link tree down below in the description and also on all of our other social medias. We are actually super close to 100 subscribers and 100 followers on Instagram and YouTube. Still trying to push the TikTok a little bit more, so if you want to follow us on that, feel free. We post all the same stuff on TikTok as we do on Instagram. And we also just opened a Discord a couple weeks ago, so feel free. The link to that is on our link tree. Feel free to join our Discord. We're talking about the podcast. We're talking about decks. We're jamming games sometimes. Come in there, hang out with us, and we'll we're in there all the time. So feel free to check that out.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for watching, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. See you on the next episode.